Director for Content Impact and Outreach at Consumer Reports. We're going to get started. Thanks so much for joining us today. As we mentioned in our calendar invite, we are doing our first ever major appliance brand reliability ranking. And it's going to be in the August issue of Consumer Reports, and it's going to be on CR.org on June the 20th. And so before that, we wanted to loop you into our methodology to make sure that you understood and to help anticipate any questions that you may have. The focus, again, is on major appliances that can be found in the kitchen and in the laundry room. We're not including smaller appliances such as blenders or toaster ovens. And again, just a reminder, I know we mentioned this in the invite, but there are no product scores that are changing as a result of these rankings. So this is a roll-up of data that is all already on CR.org. So if you have any questions about how your products already score, all the inputs that went into this ranking are on CR.org. And you can feel free to type questions in the Q&A pod that you see on your screen throughout. We are going to take questions at the end, but you can type them in whenever you want, or you can wait to the end. Joining me on the call today is Simon Slater, who's our Associate Director for Survey Research Development, as well as Mike Sakuchi, who's our Director of Statistics and Data Science. So you'll be hearing from the two of them, and they're going to help answer any questions you may have. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Simon.
Thank you, Jen. So to get things going, I'm just going to run through today's agenda. We'll start off with a refresher of our new look ratings as of the spring of last year. Then we'll move on to an explanation of today's main events, CR's first ever average predicted brand reliability scores across major appliance categories. After this, we'll be going over the products covered in this analysis, our inclusion criteria for the brands we score, a mock-up of how these rankings will appear in our magazine, and an overview of how average brand reliability scores are calculated. And as Jen said, finally we'll leave time to answer any questions you may have about these new scores. Okay. As many of you may know or remember from our webinar last spring on CR's integrated overall scores, major appliances are now being evaluated by CR through a combination of our test and survey ratings. And our predicted reliability as well as our owner satisfaction ratings are based on the feedback we receive from our members on our quarterly questionnaires. Now, because to us, while there are various ways to assess an appliance manufacturer's reputation for reliability, that can be personal experience, word of mouth, or marketing, nothing beats real-world data. And our real-world reliability data comes from the responses we receive to the question you can see on the far left of the screen, which is how many times do the products you own break or stop working as well as they should. And because we know from our surveys that consumers expect all major appliances to last, or major appliance categories, to last for a median of 10 years, our reliability for analyses includes products purchased new over the past 10 years. We then use that data to estimate how well new models from a given brand will hold up within the first 5 years of ownership. So this can be thought of as the midlife of a major appliance's expected lifespan. And after that, we combine the reliability and satisfaction ratings we get from our surveys with our lab test results to come up with our overall scores. Now, by the way, when we say major appliances, we're referring to big appliances that generally have to be delivered and installed. Okay, now here's an example of the updated product ratings you may have become familiar with on our website or in our magazine over the past year. You can see the overall score to the left, followed by price, and next to that are the survey results of predicted reliability and owner satisfaction, and that's followed by our test results ratings. All right. And so far we've discussed how we now assess the reliability of brands within a particular product category. But now we're taking this concept one step further by rolling up all the major appliance subcategories together to create one big overall ranking. And at this point, the next question you're likely to have is, How is CR doing this? Well, all predicted reliability ratings within the different subcategories for a major appliance category like refrigerators, for example, are averaged into a single brand level predicted reliability rating for that category. For example, we give separate reliability ratings for top freezers, bottom freezers, side-by-sides, etc. If a brand is rated in multiple subcategories, we roll up these individual ratings into a single refrigerators rating. If, however, there are no subcategories for a particular product, as is the case for how we rate dishwashers, electric wall ovens, or over-the-range microwaves, or a brand is only rated in a subcategory, then we use that brand's actual predicted reliability, in one subcategory, I should say, we use that brand's actual predicted reliability rating in our rankings analysis. So we then roll up each brand's overall category ratings for all major appliance categories in which they're rated into what we're now going to be calling the average predicted reliability score. Next question may be, why are we doing this? We've actually been doing something similar with our auto reliability ratings for car brands. And we also, a second reason is that we want to incentivize brands that do well in tough categories, tough ratings categories, to be more specific. Also want to mention that you'll be able to see these scores, these average predicted reliability ranking scores, on consumerreports.org when they go live on June 20th, and then shortly after in the August 2019 issue of Consumer Reports magazine, which I believe will hit the newsstand sometime in late June or early July. All right. The 8 major appliances that are covered in our brand reliability rankings include, as you can see here to the left, refrigerators, dishwashers, ranges, cooktops, electric wall ovens, over-the-range microwaves, washing machines, and dryers. Each brand in our ranking currently receives reliability ratings in 2 or more of the aforementioned product categories. And these rankings that will be going live later this month are based on the feedback we received in our 2018 quarterly questionnaires on more than 381,000 major appliances purchased between 2008 and 2018. All right. Now, this is what the chart is going to, this rankings chart is going to look like when it's published in CR Magazine. While the chart you're currently looking at is only for illustrative purposes, it might look somewhat different when displayed on our website or in our mobile app. Now, before we delve into the specifics of the chart, we want to make it clear, as Jen said, and I want to just say this again, that none of your brand-specific category or applicable subcategory ratings for reliability are changing due to these new rankings. And with that being said, let's delve into some chart-specific details. The bars themselves reflect each brand's average predicted reliability score. The colored distributions for these scores coincide with the cutoffs we use for our overall product scores, to which you've likely become accustomed. Now, brands receiving a score of 81 or more will receive an excellent, or highlighted here by the dark green tier ranking. A score of 61 to 80 will put you in the very good or light green tier ranking. 41 to 60 is a good or yellow ranking. 21 to 40 is a fair, or in this case, an orange ranking. And 20 or less is a poor or red ranking. Though they're not detailed in this mock-up, each bar that you're looking at will include the brand names and average predicted reliability scores in the bars. Under the bars, we display each brand's overall predicted reliability rating for each major appliance in which you're currently rated by CR. The product categories are listed vertically, starting with, I'll just walk you through this briefly, refrigerators, followed by dishwashers, and ranges, cooktops, electric wall ovens, over-the-range microwaves, washers, and then dryers in that order. And just to remind everyone, if you'd like to see our ratings for any particular subcategory, they are available right now on our website. You can go to consumerreports.org to look that up. All right. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Dr. Mike Sakucci, who Jen said, Consumer Reports Director of Statistics and Data Sciences. And he's going to be giving you a brief overview of the methodology behind our average predictive reliability scores. So take it away, Mike.
Thanks, Simon. As discussed by Simon, the individual reliability ratings in the chart are calculated as an average of the brand subcategory scores. The average brand reliability score is calculated by adjusting the brand's reliability performance within subcategories. We do this so that our comparisons are on an apples-to-apples basis. This adjustment is important since brands that only produce top freezers, which tend to be less problematic, would have an unfair advantage over brands that just produce French door refrigerators, which tend to be more problematic, as illustrated here. We want to incentivize brands that do well in tough categories so that we're encouraging them the best balance of innovation and reliability. Now I'll turn it back to Jen.
That is actually the last slide we have. So at this point, you can please type in your questions in the Q&A pod, and we will answer as many as possible in the time remaining.
Great, thank you. So we have a question about when the survey data was collected, and Simon mentioned that all this data is from our 2018 quarterly questionnaire. We send out 4 questionnaires a year. They each cover different product categories, and so, the time frame was calendar year 2018, calendar year. So each quarter we sent out a different questionnaire, and that's what this was gathered from. So, we talked about balancing innovation and reliability, and that this is sort of a manifestation of that. And there's a question if we could be more specific about kind of what we were trying to do with balancing those two things, which is like some categories, like top freezers, are very reliable, but they're not necessarily the most innovative categories, and some other innovative categories have more issues potentially. We see this in cars too because of the electronics. Mm-hmm. So is there anything more we can say about the balance we were trying to strike?
I think you did a good job there. Mm-hmm. That is it in a nutshell.
And Mike, anything else you want to say?
So let me just say that what we've done is we've basically statistically adjusted the data so that everything is on a comparable basis. It's standard statistical modeling.
Again, I think one of the things we were trying to accomplish here is to incentivize brands that do well in the categories in which it's harder to get a good rating. This sort of levels the playing field, as Mike was saying.
And, once the rankings come out and people have questions about their particular products and how that went, they can, feel free to reach out to the email address that this invite came from. So a question about, do we have scores by manufacturer or is it just by brand? And so they're by brand, but is there something you want to say about, there are some companies that own multiple brands or multiple, labels as consumers would see them in the marketplace. So this chart reflects how consumers are seeing it in the marketplace.
And that's what it's by brands.
Yes, it's by brand. So there's a question for washers. What are the subcategories? Is it just top loaders and front loaders?
We break that down further. There are 2 types of top loaders. We have our top load agitators, high efficiency top loaders, front loaders, both full size and compact front loaders.
So that would be 4
subcategories.
4 subcategories.
The 4 subcategories that are right now rated on CRO.
Great. A question about any other input other than consumer survey responses. At this point, no.
No.
They're all based on the 2018 quarterly questionnaire.
Right.
And if it's based solely on CR members, how do we take that into consideration when we're reporting the data? We are very transparent that this data comes from our members. We do get a fairly large statistical sample. In this case, you've got 381,000 responses,
yep.
Pieces of data.
Yep.
And so, question about how do we take into account possible inaccurate number of times the product breaks? So I mean, we're really relying on consumers to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, so we're dichotomizing, so it's really an expression of it ever breaking. It's based on that. We're not adding up the number of times each person tells us that it broke. It is a measure of a prediction based on did it ever break or stop working as well as it should. So did it ever have problems in the time you've owned it?
Right. And we do get fairly consistent responses from folks, which is how we know that there's not a large number of people who are misreporting the data or the number of times things are broken. We have another question about, are the subcategories and the categories equally weighted when we do the overall score? So Mike, I think that's probably a question for you of whether or not the subcategories and categories are weighted equally when you do the overall score.
Yeah, to get the the refrigerator score, we averaged just plain average of the sub-scores. And to roll up to the overall reliability, we averaged each of their main category scores.
So then there was a question about, is the annual predicted reliability and owner satisfaction update coming up soon on the product scores? And I think that's a question of, we rolled out this new overall score last June for a big batch of major appliances. We've rolled it out throughout the year across probably 20, a little bit more than over 20 categories, and then those are going to continue to get updated.
Yeah, at different times throughout the year, but they will get updated annually.
Yes, but for that category. So I guess these folks were probably part of the early June batch. So we've got these rankings, but the question is, are there plans for these scores to change in the next couple of months? And the answer is probably yes, as we get the new data in from the 20, as we start applying the data that we get.
You'll see updated ratings later this year for the products that are being covered in our presentation.
So there's a question of, we talked about problematic categories like French door refrigerators being more problematic. Is there a way that we define problematic, or is it really just so literal as to, like, of the root word having more problems?
It's based on the ratings we see. Some categories there's a lot more of our, what I called before, the excellent or dark green ratings tiers. Other categories where you have very few, if any, that make it into that dark or light green ratings tier. So that's how we define particularly a problematic.
It's comparative problem rates.
Yes.
Yes, it's comparing the problem rates across subcategories and categories, and then seeing which ones have more problems and which ones having less.
Merely based on our data.
Yes, and it's numeric. Yes. A question about the demographics of our respondents, just kind of general, if there's anything we can say generally about our subscriber base.
Yeah, I mean, they tend to be more male than general public, tend to be a bit older than the general public, also tend to be a bit more affluent.
And better educated, yes.
And better educated than the general public. So that's the basic breakdown of the CR member.
I will say, or we should say, that now that it's gone online, we are bringing in, now that the survey has gone quarterly and online, we're bringing in more diverse folks, because it's easier to fill out than our old paper ballot was, and so it allows more opportunity for responses.
Yeah, there are some slight demographic changes that are making it a little bit more representative.
So another question, does the score get adjusted between one category, say like a dishwasher where there's no subcategories, versus a category that has subcategories?
So, how best to answer that? Once again, what we do for a category like refrigerators that has multiple subcategories, we average across the subcategory scores. But in the wrap-up of the overall score, we adjust those so that they're on an apples-to-apples basis. For a category that does not have subcategories, we use its score, so it does not get adjusted.
Great. And we have another question here about feedback that some manufacturers have had in the past about different SKUs and how, because we don't get model level information from folks. It's just brand folks. So, the question is how we sort of account for that. And how do we, I think we'd obviously love to get to the model level if we could, but, how do you account for that? And
honestly, I can't say that we've tried in the past to ask for people's models, and there's a lot of uncertainty about specific models and people's memory for them. So, we don't get to that level. How are we getting at least to, trying to account for, well, we're looking at 10 years of purchases. So in that there is quite a large, I'm sure, model mix. But, we cannot give you because we just don't ask about it, the actual specific models that people are reporting on. There'd be a lot of error in that data, and we wouldn't trust it.
A question about how often will this list be updated. I think, we'd like to have this be something that we do. So this is the first time we've done it, and as data, changes, we'll reevaluate continuing to do it and, seeing the feedback that we get from it. But we're looking to make this a more regular occurrence. We've done it in cars, and, we'd love to do it more in appliances and potentially look at other categories. There was a question about our countertop microwaves included in over the range. I think it's just
over the range. For these purposes, we're considering an over-the-range microwave as a major appliance. It's something that would have to be installed. Countertop microwaves don't have to be installed, and they're also likely not delivered, except if you're ordering from online. You can certainly put them in your trunk, so we would consider that to be a small appliance. So countertops are not included in this analysis.
There's a question about, is the overall score the only data being released? Is there other data available? So the overall score is the major, data we're releasing. You'll see that what we call our chevrons for each of the categories are also being released. That is just a roll-up of the subcategory performance. So now, yes, they are new. So now's a good time to check out CR.org in these 8 categories and all the various subcategories to see what the predicted reliability scores are, just to get a sense of how things will net out.
So just a little caveat to what Jen just said, for those 3 product categories that I mentioned in the presentation, what Jen said is true, but for dishwashers, wall ovens, and over-the-range microwaves, the chevron rating that you will see in the chart is the actual chevron rating, right, because there are no subcategories for those 3 particular product categories. We're not rolling up any scores that are rating. That is the rating that you would see on CRO today.
Right, and so as Simon said, that chart was just a mock-up. The chevrons there aren't the real chevrons, but we wanted to give you a sense of what the chart was going to look like. There's a question about our turnover in responses. Are they the same people answering every year as long as they're members, or how does that work? How do we?
They can be, but every year we do get a large majority are new respondents. For most of the 3 out of the 4 surveys, it's a randomly selected sample of our members. So we do switch them up every year, and they do, they might fall into for the 4 quarterly surveys we do, except for the spring, which I know we mentioned in the previous webinar. where everybody has a chance to take that survey. For the other 3 surveys, you are randomly selected into each of those surveys. So perhaps one year you'll get randomly put into the dishwashers, the washing machines survey, which tends to happen in the fall. Another year you might be randomly put into our winter survey, and then you get a chance to tell us about some more of your electronics products. So it's not the same participants, all the same participants, I should say, over and over and over again in each product category.
Right, and we are getting new subscribers, new members every year, and we have people who kind of drop out of the pool as well.
Right.
A question about, not working as well as it should. Could that be something like a dishwasher that's 8 years old that doesn't dry as well as it used to?
I mean, anything is possible that it's not doing what it's supposed to do. We do, but the question is written, and it says, did it break? Or
Stop working
as well as it should. Not that it just wasn't, working, it stopped working as well as it should.
Right. So it could include.
That it couldn't include more minor problems, but it's not doing the things that it's supposed to do.
Right.
And that's why we're not including, 20 and 30-year-old products in our reliability ratings. People do expect these machines to perform at, peak performance for 10 years and on average, and that's why we're only including the previous 10 years of purchases.
Well, and to put a fine point on that, we predict out to the 5th year of ownership, and we go back 10 years because we ask folks, how long are you keeping your major appliances? So all 8 of these categories, we look back 10 years to predict out 5 years. There are other categories we look at outside of these 8 where we have different thresholds depending on what people tell us how long they keep their products for.
Yeah, our survey ratings, we try to make them our term as consumer-centric as possible. And such, if consumers are expecting, a wash machine to last 10 years, then we're looking at 10 years of purchases. For a lot of electronics categories, they're only expecting to get 5 useful years out of them, so we adjust accordingly.
Got it. Next question. Are there any incentives for our survey responses? No, we don't incentivize them in any way. This is just part of being a member, that they get this survey and they willingly take it.
I mean, we see it as a member benefit.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But there are no.
No,
there's no incentive provided. When will electronics have the roll-up score implemented? Well, we're trying that with appliances, and we're looking at other categories, but we don't have any plans just now. Question, is the brand reliability score for a specific time period, say 12 months, or is it a score based on all data collected over time? So this score is current as of the 2018 quarterly questionnaire data being the most recent data that we have crunched.
Correct.
Once the 2019 data starts being crunched and rolled out, this particular chart will not be current anymore. We still have a few more months till that's the case. And then we would make the decision to either to update it or to wait till all 2019 is in and to do another one.
And I think it's likely the latter, just about how the surveys are staggered throughout the year.
So a question just to really put a clarifying fine point. Across categories, is refrigerator reliability weighted equally with over-the-range microwaves? And the answer to that is yes. So they are all treated equally for the purpose of the overall score. It is within a category such as refrigerators where you have subcategories such as, top freezers versus French doors. That's where you see the adjustment taking place in order to provide an equal playing field for those manufacturers making products that have a higher degree of difficulty and do well within those categories. Next question. Even when we make adjustments, this person is raising the point, it could negatively affect brands with multiple products versus single product brands. Is there, like, how do we deal with the fact if, like, a company just makes one or two products and happens to do that really well versus a company that does multiple products? I mean, I think it might go ahead.
I'd say we only calculated the overall score for the brand reliability score if they had at least two categories.
Right. And I think what we're trying to see is, so even if you just have two categories, are you innovators in that category? Is it worth just looking at those categories? And so we're really trying to tell the consumer, what if a company just makes, you know, 3 products for the kitchen or 2 types of products for the laundry room? Like, have that be part of the mix.
It is, in the end, for the products that each company decide to make, how well do they do it? How well do they do in, or how reliable are they in the products they've chosen to put on the market?
Right. I think another point that we make is if a brand does offer very few models, the score would be representative of the 1 or 2 models that they make. And so it would actually be even more reflective of that product mix and what they had on the market, which would also help balance it out. A question about clarifying that all participants are members, the answer is yes.
Absolutely, yes. And
to be a member, to take this survey, membership is defined by any number of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have paid access to CR products. You can have shared a story. You can have done a use ask. You can have taken an action. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you are a paying member of CR, only that you have engaged with us in such a way and given us permission to contact you for such a purpose.
And you've signed up with our membership. I mean,
yes, you have explicitly signed up.
But you are a member.
So a question about, have we ever considered subcategories based on their base structure materials, such as stainless steel versus plastic? I don't think we've ever thought of going to that level of granularity at this point. So a question of, what are the questions that you are asking to calculate the score? The score for predicted reliability is based on that one question that Simon put forward, and that was in the presentation, which we will make available, this webinar. We will share it with all of you, which is how many times in the past year.
This is how many times has this product, you fill in the blank, washing machine, refrigerator, did a breaker stop working as well as it should in the time you owned it?
So a question about, is there a plan to take into account appliances with additional features? I mean, we're always, considering any product category with what's coming on the market, and if it's mass market and nationally available, then it'll potentially go into our mix of what it is we evaluate. So here's a question about, how do you account for significant improvements in the past 2 years? Is there any weightings done for the most recent years versus the out years?
Not at the moment.
No, but we do look at trends, and so if there was a significant improvement, we would find a big change in the results.
But it's likely, if you're a brand, say if you're a brand that was didn't do particularly well for particular reliability, it will take some time before the impact to show in your ratings in any specific product category area.
And also, the score is reflective of what's in the marketplace. And so what you're selling is what people are buying and what they're owning based on the average lifespans of these products.
And then I also want to make the point that every year, older products, once they become older than 10 years old, they move out of our rating.
Yes.
So they're not included in our line.
And then that's how we see the
and
changes
the new ones
from
come
year,
in.
from year to year.
If your models are better, that will be reflected in your reliability ratings over time.
Yes, and so one could say that the score is actually a sales-weighted average of what the model mix is and how that model mix is progressing.
Something we've also said, Jen, that's very important, I think, here to take into account is significant improvements in the lab still need to show how how they perform in the real world.
Yeah.
And that takes time to find
And
out.
perform over time, which is why it takes time.
That's right. So just because you might have you made a number of improvements, we still need to see once they're in people's homes how reliable they are, and whether the changes you made in your labs actually bear out in our members' homes.
A follow-up question about how representative of the general population is the sample base, then I think, Simon, you were making the point earlier that our members actually tend to be more representative of homeowners, so these are people who are actually buying
products
these.
because they own homes.
Yes.
So the general population, of course, also includes a lot of renters and a lot of younger people who are not close to owning homes.
Right.
So our membership are mostly homeowners that are actually buying appliances.
Which is why we have such a large sample size, because these are people who are
Yeah.
owning their homes and therefore buying their appliances. And
also to that point, I want to make it very clear also, we are only including people who have purchased the products new themselves. We're not including people who bought like a used refrigerator off of eBay. It is all newly purchased products that they made themselves.
that's a really important point, that these are all products that are bought new.
Right. So
You are the original owner, and you bought it.
Right. So if you walked into a house and it already had a washer and a dishwasher, you would not be included in our reliability estimates.
So we have come to the end of the questions that folks have queued up. This is sort of our last call for questions today. It doesn't mean if you think of a question or you see the webinar or you share it with colleagues and they have questions, you can't reach back out. The email, externalrelations@cr.consumer.org, is open to you. So without any new questions, we'll conclude the webinar. Again, you'll receive this in the next 2 or 3 days via email with the launch date of this new ranking on June the 20th in probably the morning hours, Eastern Standard Time. So thank you so much all for your time, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good